Have you ever felt like there's a part of you that's still stuck in childhood? Afraid, ashamed, desperate to be loved, but unsure how to ask for it? Maybe you've built a strong adult persona, responsible, accomplished, disciplined. Yet deep down, you sometimes feel unworthy, insecure, or invisible. You sabotage relationships, doubt your value, or exhaust yourself trying to prove you're enough. What if I told you that these feelings don't come from weakness, but from a forgotten child inside of you? A part of you that wasn't loved the way it needed. A part that, according to Carl Jung, never truly disappears. In this video, we'll explore how healing your inner child might be the key not only to emotional freedom, but to reclaiming your lost self-esteem. And no, this isn't just self-help fluff. This is deep psychological work, rooted in Jungian philosophy. Let's go inward. The inner child isn't just a metaphor, it's a psychological reality. According to Jung, the child archetype lives within the unconscious and represents innocence, potential, and vulnerability. But it also carries the wounds of the past. Every time you were ignored, humiliated, abandoned, or made to feel too much or not enough, those experiences didn't just vanish. They became part of the unconscious psyche, and unless we bring them to light, they silently dictate how we live. Why do you overreact when someone criticizes you? Why do you seek validation from emotionally unavailable people? Why do you shrink yourself to be accepted? Often, it's your wounded inner child crying out. Many of us think we've moved on from childhood, but we haven't. We've just learned to wear masks. Jung called this the persona, the image we present to the world to gain approval. Maybe your persona is the achiever, or the caretaker, or the strong one. But here's the problem. When we over-identify with the persona and neglect the inner child, we become fragmented. The child in us keeps replaying old emotional patterns while the adult self tries to control everything. And that tension creates anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and burnout. Let's look at some real-life examples. A woman constantly falls for partners who neglect her. Why? Her inner child is trying to fix the emotional abandonment of her father. A man overworks and can't rest. Deep down, he believes he's only lovable if he performs, because as a child, he was only praised for achievements. Another person explodes with rage at small criticisms. That's not an adult response, it's the child defending itself against past humiliation. These patterns aren't you. They are echoes of unmet needs. When you see them for what they are, not failures but signals, you can begin the healing process. Healing your inner child doesn't mean going back in time and changing the past. It means becoming the conscious, compassionate adult that your inner child never had. It's about reparenting yourself. Jung believed that through individuation, integrating all parts of the self, including the child, we become whole. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about remembering your worth, your playfulness, your truth. Healing means creating safety inside your own body, letting the child feel and express, and being fully present with yourself in moments of pain. It's spiritual work as much as it is psychological. Let's talk about how to actually do this. Here are 5 powerful tools. First, inner child meditation. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and imagine meeting your child's self. What age are they? What do they need to hear? Say it to them, reassure them, let them cry, listen. Do this regularly. Second, journaling letters. Write letters from your inner child. Let them say everything they couldn't say. Then respond from your adult self with love, not judgment. Third, create safe rituals. Daily self-care routines are not luxuries, they're acts of safety. Your inner child needs structure, calm, and consistency. Give yourself what you didn't receive. Fourth, identify your core beliefs. What hidden beliefs run your life? I'm not enough. I don't matter. I'm too much. Trace them back. Who gave you that belief? Question it, reframe it. Fifth, embodiment practices. Jung emphasized the importance of integrating the psyche with the body. Practices like breathwork, dancing, drawing, or even playful movement help you connect to the energy of the child in a healthy way. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel free, others you'll regress. That's okay. Every emotional wave is a new opportunity to respond with compassion instead of shame. You're not broken. You're rebuilding trust with yourself. When you heal your inner child, you're not just dealing with the past. You're changing your present and shaping a future where self-worth is no longer conditional. You stop chasing love, because you've made peace with the part of you that once begged for it. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Healing the inner child is exactly that, making the unconscious conscious. Giving your pain language. Giving your younger self the love it was denied. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Subscribe for more videos like this, and most importantly, start today. You don't need to become someone else, you just need to come home to yourself. Your inner child has been waiting. But what does it really mean to reparent yourself? The term sounds abstract, maybe even cliché, but at its core, it's incredibly practical. It means that in moments of fear, shame, or self-doubt, you don't abandon yourself the way others once did. You stay, you listen, you soothe, you validate. That's it. Not with toxic positivity or fake affirmations, but with presence, with truth. Imagine a child coming to you crying because they feel unlovable. Would you say, get over it? No. You'd kneel down, look them in the eyes and say, I see you, I hear you, you matter. That's what your adult self must do for your inner child, again and again, especially in the moments when it feels hardest. Jung believed that every psychological symptom is an attempt by the unconscious to make itself known. That means your anxiety, your triggers, your people-pleasing, they're not flaws, they're messages, clues. Your inner child doesn't speak through logic, it speaks through feelings, through patterns, through the pain you try to suppress. So healing starts by listening, not trying to fix, not trying to be perfect, just noticing. What hurts? When do you feel small, reactive, panicked? These aren't adult emotions, they're echoes from the past. The more conscious you become of them, the more choice you gain. Here's a truth most people never hear. Self-esteem isn't built by achieving more. It's built by no longer abandoning yourself when you feel less than. If your self-worth is tied to performance, validation, or approval, it's not real, it's conditional. The inner child teaches us something radical. You were worthy the moment you were born. But somewhere along the way, that truth was replaced with a lie. Maybe someone ignored you when you needed love. Maybe you were punished for expressing emotion. Maybe you were told directly or indirectly that you had to earn love, so you adapted. You got quiet, you got busy, you got strong. But inside the wound remained, and that wound doesn't heal through success. It heals through presence, through feeling what was once unfelt, through grieving what was lost, through finally saying to yourself, I will not leave you again. Let's go deeper. One of the most powerful practices in Jungian psychology is active imagination. It's a way of entering into dialogue with unconscious parts of the psyche. Try this. Sit down in a quiet space, close your eyes, and imagine walking into a room. Your inner child is there. Let them speak. Don't control it. Just listen. What do they say? What do they need? Maybe they're angry, maybe they're silent, maybe they want to show you something. Let the scene unfold. Then, as your adult self, respond. Comfort them. Ask them questions. Stay with them. This isn't fantasy, it's soul work. Jung called the unconscious the seat of creativity, healing, and renewal. When we enter it consciously, we access profound wisdom. You can also express your inner child creatively. Draw, paint, write poetry, not to be good at it, but to feel, to release, to reconnect. As children, we were naturally expressive until shame shut it down. Reclaiming creativity is a form of liberation. It doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is the intention. I am giving space to a part of me that was silenced. Another essential piece is boundaries. Yes, boundaries are inner child work. Why? Because a child without protection learns to fawn, to appease, to merge with others in order to survive. Many of us carry that pattern into adulthood. We say yes when we mean no. We tolerate disrespect. We stay small to avoid rejection. But every time you betray your boundaries, you re-traumatize the child within. Healing means learning to say, I will protect you now. You don't have to keep people happy to feel safe. Boundaries are how the adult self earns the child's trust. Now let's talk about the role of the body. Jung understood that the psyche and soma, mind and body, are deeply connected. Trauma isn't just remembered mentally, it's stored physically. If your inner child is frozen in fear, your body might feel tight, constricted, or numb. That's why somatic healing is crucial. Breathwork, yoga, trembling, shaking, massage, these aren't luxuries. They're ways of helping the nervous system feel safe again. And when the body feels safe, the inner child begins to trust that the world is no longer dangerous. This process is not always pretty. Sometimes healing looks like falling apart, like crying for hours, like rage coming to the surface, like realizing you've been performing your whole life. That's not regression, that's release. The child is finally speaking. Let them. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You must go into the shadow not to get stuck, but to retrieve the lost parts of yourself. The joy, the wonder, the spontaneity, the freedom, they're all there, underneath the pain. And don't do this alone. Healing happens in relationship. Find a therapist, a coach, a support group. Someone who can witness you without judgment. Someone who can say, "You're not crazy, you're healing." We need mirrors. We need connection. Because often the original wound was relational. So the repair must be relational too. One of the most heartbreaking realizations in healing your inner child is understanding how often you've betrayed yourself just to feel loved. You smiled when you wanted to cry. You stayed when you wanted to run. You said, "I'm fine," when everything inside you was breaking. Why? Because somewhere deep down, the child inside you believed, "If I'm not easy to love, I'll be left." That belief doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from lived experience, from childhood moments when you were scolded for being too sensitive, too needy, too much. So you shrank, you performed, you built a mask, and over time, you forgot it was even a mask. Jung called this the persona, the part of us that adapts to social expectations. It's not evil, it's a survival strategy. But healing begins when we realize we're more than the persona. Beneath the mask is the child, authentic, raw, beautiful in their vulnerability, and that part of us is starving for truth. Not performance, not perfection, just truth. You don't need to be anyone else to be worthy, you never did. But it takes courage to unlearn a lifetime of pretending. Let's bring this down to earth. Think about your everyday life. When someone criticizes you, do you collapse inward? Do you over-apologize, over-explain, feel like a child in trouble? That's not your adult self reacting. That's the wounded child still believing they have to earn safety. Or when you succeed at something, do you feel deep joy or does it feel empty? That too is a sign. The child who never felt truly seen will continue chasing gold stars, even when they're not fulfilling. You can't fix an internal wound with external validation. It's like drinking salt water. It looks like a solution, but it only deepens the thirst. Jung said that healing doesn't come from fixing the world, but from transforming your relationship to it. The world might never be perfect. People will still hurt you. Life will still be unfair. But when your inner child feels safe with you, you stop needing the outside to constantly reassure you. That's true self-esteem. Not confidence in what you do, but in who you are, in your essence, in your soul. So how do we rebuild that sense of safety within? One powerful practice is daily check-ins. Every morning, before the world gets loud, sit with your hand over your heart and ask, what does my inner child need from me today? Maybe it's rest, maybe it's play, maybe it's just a promise that you won't ignore their feelings. These check-ins create a bridge. They turn your healing into a relationship, not a task. And that relationship, like any relationship, thrives on consistency. Another tool? Journaling. Not just as your adult self, but as your child self. Write a letter from them to you. Let them speak freely. Why didn't you protect me? Why do you keep pushing me so hard? Then respond with compassion. Reassure them. Apologize if you need to. This dialogue opens up space for integration. You're no longer pushing parts of yourself away. You're reuniting with them. There's also power in ritual. Children thrive on rituals. They create predictability and safety. Recreate that for your inner child. Maybe it's lighting a candle every evening and saying you're safe now. Maybe it's wrapping yourself in a blanket and watching a movie you loved as a kid. Maybe it's dancing in your room, wildly, freely, just to remember what joy feels like. These small acts aren't silly, they're sacred. They remind your nervous system that life isn't just survival. It can also be soft, gentle, kind, and let's not forget the impact of language. The way you talk to yourself matters. If your internal voice is critical, shaming, or harsh, you're reenacting the very dynamics that wounded you. Catch that voice. Challenge it. Ask, would I speak this way to a child I love? If not, change the script. Speak with warmth, with encouragement, with softness. That doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means choosing a tone that heals rather than harms. You don't motivate a child with cruelty. You motivate them with love. Jung also spoke about the shadow, the parts of us we deny, repress, or ignore. Often, the inner child lives in that shadow. Maybe they're angry, maybe they're messy, maybe they want things you've told yourself you're not allowed to want. Let them out. Let them speak. The more you welcome those parts, the more whole you become. Wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It means nothing is left behind. And that's the real goal here, not to become someone new, but to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. To peel back the layers of performance, shame, and fear until all that's left is the truth. And that truth, it's enough. Always has been. You might be wondering, what if I don't feel anything? What if I try to connect and all I feel is numbness? That too is part of the process. Numbness is a defense. It's how the child protected you when things were too overwhelming to feel. Don't rush it. Don't force breakthroughs. Just keep showing up. Trust takes time. The more consistently you show your inner child that you're not going to abandon them, the more they'll begin to trust you again. And when the trust comes back, something magical happens. You begin to feel lighter, more alive. You laugh more. You cry more freely. You stop overthinking every interaction. You take up space. You speak your truth, because you're no longer afraid that love will be taken away. You've become the source of love, and that changes everything. There's a quiet kind of strength that forms when you stop trying to be impressive and start being real. That's the moment your inner child finally exhales. Because for so long, they've been under pressure to be perfect, to be pleasing, to be small. But the healing begins when you say, you don't have to earn love anymore. You just get to be. This is especially important in relationships. If your inner child feels unsafe, you'll unconsciously turn relationships into survival games. You'll cling, withdraw, sabotage, or overgive, not because you're broken, but because some part of you still believes love has to be fought for. But healthy love isn't earned through performance. It's received through openness. When your inner child feels loved by you, they no longer need others to constantly prove they won't leave. You stop outsourcing your sense of worth. Let's imagine a typical situation. Someone pulls away emotionally. They stop texting. They grow distant. If you're healing, this is where the old patterns might roar to the surface. Panic, obsession, self-blame. But if you pause, breathe, and listen inward, you might hear the child's voice. Did I do something wrong? Am I unlovable? And that's your cue. Not to shame that voice, not to shut it down, but to sit beside it and say, you didn't do anything wrong. You are safe with me. That moment rewires everything. You begin to parent yourself in real time. And make no mistake, this is the deepest act of self-love. Not bubble baths, not inspirational quotes, but standing in the middle of an emotional storm and refusing to abandon yourself, refusing to betray yourself to be accepted. You choose truth, even if it's messy. You choose softness, even if it's scary. That is how you reclaim your power. Now let's talk about the body. Because trauma, especially from childhood, doesn't just live in the mind. It lives in your muscles, your posture, your nervous system. If you were constantly on edge as a child, your body might still be bracing, even in moments of peace. That's why somatic healing is so powerful. Practices like breathwork, trauma-informed yoga, or simply lying on the floor and feeling your weight can reteach the body what safety feels like. And when the body feels safe, the heart begins to open. A beautiful practice is placing one hand on your heart and the other on your belly. As you breathe, say to yourself, in this moment, I am safe. In this breath, I am home. Simple words, profound impact. They interrupt the pattern of hypervigilance. They signal to your inner child, it's okay to let go now. And sometimes, to truly heal, we have to grieve. Not just the big traumas, but the quiet heartbreaks. The moments when we needed someone to say, I see you, I hear you, and instead got silence. Let yourself cry for that child. Not to get stuck in pain, but to move through it. Tears are not weakness. They're a cleansing, an unfreezing of something that was trapped for too long. And on the other side of those tears, freedom, lightness, peace. It's also worth looking at your achievements through this lens. Have you been chasing success to prove your worth? Were your accomplishments driven by love or by the fear of not being enough? If you've been striving for approval, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you were doing your best to survive. But now you get to build from a new place. Not fear, but fullness. Not look at me, but I know who I am. And who are you, really? You are the child who once danced for no reason, who asked questions without fear, who loved openly, deeply, wildly. That part of you is still alive. Maybe they've gone quiet. Maybe they're hiding. But they're waiting for you, not to fix them, just to see them, to sit beside them, to listen. That's the paradox of healing. The more we try to be better, the more we reinforce the shame that we are somehow not enough right now. But when we soften into presence, when we stop running and start witnessing, healing begins on its own. Like a wound that closes when it's no longer being poked. Like a flower that opens when the frost is gone. And yes, some days will be harder than others. Some days the old voices will be loud. You're not doing enough. You're falling behind. No one really cares about you. But on those days, return to the child. Picture them, small and scared, and say, "We've come so far. I'm not leaving you now." That's not denial, that's devotion. Healing isn't linear. It's cyclical, like the moon. Sometimes bright, sometimes shadowed. And every time you revisit the pain with more presence, more compassion, more wisdom, you're deepening the healing. You're layering love where there once was fear. And let's be honest, the world doesn't always reward this work. It rewards achievement, speed, performance. But you're doing something radical. You're slowing down, you're turning inward, you're tending to something sacred. That matters. Even if no one sees it. Even if no one claps. Because the moment you meet your inner child with unconditional love, the game changes. You stop living for applause. You start living in alignment. And that's the beginning of real self-esteem. Not a fragile confidence based on status, but a quiet knowing, I belong here. I matter. I am enough. That's the gift Jung pointed us toward, individuation. Becoming whole. Becoming real. Not perfect, but whole. Sometimes healing isn't about becoming something new. It's about remembering what you were before the world told you to be something else. Before the shame, before the masks, before the fear. That child inside you still holds the blueprint, not of who you were supposed to be, but who you are. Healing is an unlearning, a soft, slow undoing of the lies you believed to survive. Carl Jung called this process individuation. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. That includes your joy and your rage, your courage and your doubt, your light and your shadow. And the inner child? They live at the very center of that wholeness. Jung believed that our unconscious holds every part of us we've exiled, and the child is often the first to be banished, the one who felt too much, asked too much, needed too much. But that child never stopped waiting, not for the world to save them, for you. One of the most powerful things you can do is reparent yourself in moments of stress. Let's say you make a mistake at work. The voice kicks in. You're so stupid. You always mess up. Pause. Don't fight the voice. Don't obey it. Just listen. Then ask, whose voice is this really? Who first spoke to me like that? You might realize it's not yours. It's an echo. And then you replace it. I made a mistake. That doesn't make me a mistake. I'm learning. I'm growing. Every time you do that, you send love where fear once lived. Let's talk relationships again. Not just romantic, but any connection. When your inner child is wounded, you might become either hyper-independent or overly dependent. You might push people away before they get too close, or cling to them, afraid they'll leave. Neither is wrong. They're just strategies. Coping mechanisms your child self developed to avoid pain. The key is to notice without judgment. To say, I see what's happening, and I don't need to abandon myself this time. The more you build inner safety, the less you seek outer permission. That doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop making them responsible for your worth. You stop making them the parent you never had. And ironically, that's when relationships deepen, when they're built on truth, not trauma. There's something else. Joy. Real joy. Not performative happiness, not distraction, but that soft, spontaneous delight that children embody. That joy doesn't return through effort. It returns through safety, through presence, through allowing. Let yourself laugh loudly, let yourself play, dance badly, cry messily, ask for a hug. These aren't regressions, they're reclamations. And then there's creativity. Your inner child is the source of your imagination. your ideas, your spark. If you've been stuck creatively, it might be because that child doesn't feel safe to express anymore. Maybe they were shamed. That's stupid. Be realistic. Grow up. So now your mind senses everything before it's even born. But you can change that. You can say, there are no bad ideas here. Everything is welcome. Watch what happens when you give your inner child a blank page and no judgment. The muse returns. Many people also report a spiritual awakening when healing the inner child. Because for the first time, they're not trying to earn love. They realize they are love. That the divine doesn't demand performance, but presence. That being deeply kind to yourself, especially when you're struggling, is one of the most sacred things you can do. This is especially true when old wounds resurface, because they will. Healing doesn't mean you never feel pain again. It means the pain doesn't define you anymore. You stop identifying as the wound and start seeing it as a doorway. Every trigger becomes a teacher, every setback an initiation. And your inner child, they don't need you to be perfect, they need you to be consistent, present, gentle. You might be wondering, how do I know if I'm healing? Not by how good you feel, but by how honest you're willing to be. When you stop numbing, when you stop pretending, when you sit with what's real, even if it's hard, that's healing. And slowly the symptoms fade. The anxiety softens. The self-sabotage loses its grip. The chaos quiets, not overnight, but over time. And then something beautiful happens. You begin to see others differently. You recognize the child in them too. The waiter who's short-tempered, the friend who disappears, the partner who's distant. You no longer take everything personally. You realize they're in pain. Doesn't mean you accept abuse, but it helps you respond with clarity instead of defensiveness. Compassion without codependency. That's the power of a healed inner child. It changes how you meet the world. Of course, not everyone will understand your healing. Some people were only connected to your unhealed self. They were used to your people-pleasing, your silence, your self-betrayal. When you start setting boundaries, speaking up, choosing rest, they might resist. That's okay. Let them. You're not here to stay small for anyone. You're here to live fully, wildly, truthfully. Because the world needs more people who are real. Not perfect, not polished, real. People who've met their pain and chosen to love anyway. People who can hold both heartbreak and hope in the same breath. That's what healing the inner child creates. Not just a better version of you, but a braver, truer one. One who no longer lives for survival, but for soul. There is a moment in healing when you stop chasing what you never received. You stop hoping someone will finally say the words, "I see you, I believe you, you matter." Because you've learned to say them to yourself. And for the first time it lands. Not in your mind, but in your bones. Your nervous system starts to believe what your soul has always known, that you are already enough. That nothing needs to be added or achieved to make you worthy of love. Carl Jung wrote about the necessity of facing the unconscious. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The inner child, with all its fears, longings and beliefs, lives in that unconscious. When unexamined, it drives our adult lives, but when brought into the light, it becomes a guide, not a ghost. Let's break this down with a real-world example. Imagine someone who always feels invisible in relationships. They try to please everyone. They avoid conflict. They say yes when they want to say no. On the surface, they seem kind, generous, easygoing. But underneath is a scared child who learned that love must be earned. That visibility is dangerous. That needs make you a burden. So they disappear, emotionally, energetically, to be safe. Now imagine that person starting to heal. They begin to notice the pattern. They pause before saying yes. They feel the anxiety rise, that fear of being rejected, disliked, abandoned. But this time they stay present. They tell their inner child, it's safe to have needs. It's okay to take up space. And they say no with love. That's not rebellion. That's reparenting. That's revolution. Inner child work is never just about the past. It's about how the past shows up in the present, in your relationships, your career, your body, your voice. Every time you betray your needs to avoid conflict, you're reinforcing an old wound. But every time you honor your truth, no matter how small, you're building a new reality, a new inner world, one where you are safe, valued, whole. Let's talk about self-esteem. Not the inflated, performative kind, but the quiet, unshakable sense that you are worthy of your own care. True self-esteem doesn't come from praise. It comes from presence, from showing up for yourself again and again, especially when it's hard, especially when you fail, especially when the old voices scream you're not enough, because that's when it matters most. Try this. The next time you feel like you're falling apart, sit down, put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and instead of saying, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "What do I need right now?" Listen closely. It might be rest, or reassurance, or simply permission to cry. Whatever the answer, give it to yourself. Not later, now. That's self-esteem in action, meeting yourself with kindness in real time. There's something deeply radical about loving the parts of you that were never loved. The angry part, the needy part, the awkward part. Most of us were taught to suppress these traits to be polite, pleasing, productive. But your humanity isn't a flaw. It's a flame. It's a flame. And when you stop rejecting yourself, the world starts to reflect that shift. You attract people who value your truth, who don't need you to shrink, who love your light and your darkness. This is why healing isn't selfish, it's sacred. Every time you do this work, you break a generational cycle. You become the parent you needed, the partner you dreamed of, the friend you longed for. You stop passing down pain and start passing down presence. That's legacy. Not what you leave behind, but what you become in this life. Let's go deeper into the body. Your inner child doesn't only live in your mind, they live in your nervous system. In the way you flinch at criticism, or freeze in conflict, or fawn to keep the peace. These aren't just personality traits, they're survival responses. Your body remembers what your mind tried to forget. That's why talk alone isn't enough. Healing must be embodied. Somatic practices like breathwork, movement, and grounding help bring the child home. Try placing your feet on the ground and saying, "I am here, I am safe, I am allowed to exist." Notice how your body responds. Maybe there's resistance, that's okay, that's the old wiring. You're not trying to force change, you're offering a new experience. Over and over again until safety becomes your baseline. Remember, consistency heals what chaos broke. Your inner child doesn't need big gestures. They need small, repeated acts of love, daily check-ins, gentle touch, honest reflection. They need to know that you're not going to abandon them, even when they're messy. Especially when they're messy. And here's something unexpected. Sometimes the final stage of healing isn't joy but grief. Grieving the childhood you didn't get, the love you never received, the protection you lacked. Let yourself feel that loss. It's real and it matters. But also grieve with gratitude, not because it was fair, but because it forged your strength, your sensitivity, your wisdom. You wouldn't be who you are without the path you walked. But now you get to choose a new path. One where your inner child is not a ghost haunting your choices, but a guide illuminating your truth. One where you no longer live from wounds, but from wonder. Healing your inner child isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Before the masks, before the walls, before the shame. Beneath all the roles you play is a raw, radiant presence. A spark that never left. The work is not to find it, it's to remove everything that buries it. Think back to when you were a child, not the photos or the stories, but the feeling of being you. What did you love? What made you feel alive? What hurt you, scared you, silenced you? Most of us had to contort ourselves to survive, to make adults comfortable, to avoid punishment, to earn approval. And in doing so, we lost pieces of ourselves. Not because we were weak, but because we were wise. Survival is wisdom. But now as adults, we have to choose a different kind of wisdom, one that doesn't abandon the self to stay safe. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are, not who you were told to be. It's a return, not a reinvention. And the guide on this journey is the very child you left behind, the one who knew wonder, who felt deeply, who cried easily, laughed freely, danced without shame. That child is still here, beneath the layers. They've been waiting for your return. How do you return? You listen without trying to fix or rush or explain. You make space for their voice. You honor their fears. You don't gaslight them with positivity. You sit in the discomfort. You witness the pain. And slowly, that child begins to trust you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. Let's look at a common pattern. Perfectionism, always needing to get it right, always afraid of making mistakes, always measuring your worth by your performance. At first glance, it looks like ambition, but beneath it, a terrified child who believed love was conditional, that if they didn't succeed, they wouldn't be safe, that mistakes meant rejection, so they chased perfection, not out of ego but out of fear. To heal this, you don't just stop trying to be perfect. You find the part of you that is still trying to earn love, and you tell them you don't have to prove anything. I love you now. Not when you're better. Not when you're successful. Now. That kind of love, unconditional, unwavering, rewires the nervous system. It creates a new foundation, not built on fear, but on truth. Another pattern, people-pleasing, saying yes when you mean no, avoiding conflict, keeping the peace at the cost of your own voice. This isn't just politeness, it's self-abandonment, often learned in childhood where expressing needs led to punishment or shame. So you learn to shape-shift, to make others comfortable, to disappear in plain sight. But disappearing isn't peace, it's erasure. And your inner child feels it every time you betray your boundaries. So what's the antidote? Boundaries rooted in self-respect, not walls but doors, with locks you control. Saying no with love is an act of reclamation. It tells the child you matter, your comfort matters, your space matters. That's not selfish, that's sacred. Some of you may feel resistance rising, doubt, guilt, grief. That's normal, because the path of healing often begins with discomfort. But stay with it. You're not going backwards, you're going inward, and what you find there will change your life. Let's return to the body. The body keeps the score, not just of trauma, but of tenderness. When was the last time you touched your own heart with gentleness? When you held yourself through panic? When you said, I'm here, not to fix, but to witness? You don't have to do this perfectly, just consistently. Because healing isn't linear. It's cyclical, spiral-shaped. You revisit the same wounds from deeper levels of awareness, and that's okay. Picture this. You're standing in front of a mirror. You see your adult face, the lines, the weariness, the strength. But behind your eyes is a child, watching, waiting, wanting to know, do you see me now? Will you fight for me now? And when you nod, not with words, but with actions, that child softens. Not because the world is safe, but because you are safe. One of the most powerful tools in this journey is inner dialogue. Speak to your inner child like you would speak to someone you love, with tenderness, patience, and honesty. Start each day with a check-in. How are you feeling today? What do you need from me? Don't dismiss their answers. Don't try to logic them away. Listen, validate, respond. That's how you rebuild trust, moment by moment, breath by breath. And remember, you're not doing this alone. All around the world, others are waking up, confronting their wounds, breaking generational chains. You are part of something bigger, a collective healing, a return to truth, a revolution of softness. You don't need to be fully healed to be worthy of love. You don't need to be fixed to be whole. You're allowed to be a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. That's what your inner child needs to hear, over and over again, until they believe it. Real healing begins when we stop trying to get rid of the pain and start listening to what it's trying to say. Pain is a messenger, a signal, a part of you that was never fully witnessed. Most people don't heal because they're too busy judging their wounds instead of understanding them. But what if every trigger was an invitation? What if every emotional reaction was a child within you saying, please don't leave me behind again? Carl Jung believed that the parts of us we disown, the rejected, the ashamed, the scared, form what he called the shadow. And the shadow isn't evil, it's exiled. It's everything you believed you had to hide in order to be loved. The inner child often lives in the shadow, not because they did something wrong, but because their feelings were too much for the adults around them. So we buried them. But buried feelings don't die. They wait. They leak. They shape how we love, how we work, how we see ourselves. To integrate the shadow is to bring light to those buried places, not to change them, but to see them. To say, you get to exist, even your sadness, even your rage, even your confusion. This is the opposite of spiritual bypassing. It's not about rising above your emotions, it's about sinking deeper into truth. Only then can you rise, with both feet on the ground, both hands holding your past and your future. Let's talk about self-esteem. Most people think it's about confidence or positive thinking, but true self-esteem is rooted in self-trust. It's the inner knowing that you are enough even when you're messy, even when you're afraid. It doesn't come from achievements, it comes from alignment, from showing up for yourself again and again, from repairing the relationship you have with your own inner world. So how do you rebuild that trust? Through reparenting, becoming the adult your inner child needed. That means setting boundaries, not as punishment, but as protection. It means feeding yourself nourishing words instead of self-criticism. It means creating a safe inner environment where all parts of you can exist without shame. Let's look at an example. Imagine you're about to give a presentation and you feel an intense wave of anxiety. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your mind spirals. Most people try to push through or numb it, but the conscious path is different. You pause, you close your eyes, you go inward and you ask, who inside me is scared right now? Maybe you hear a whisper, I'm afraid they'll laugh at me. That's your inner child, not irrational, just wounded. So you respond, I hear you, I won't abandon you, we'll do this together. That's healing in real time. Or maybe you notice you're in another cycle of self-sabotage. You start a new habit, then quit. You crave closeness, then push people away. You want success, but fear being seen. Instead of shaming yourself, you get curious. You ask, what am I protecting myself from? Often, it's not laziness or failure, it's the memory of being judged, punished, or unloved. You're not broken, you're brilliant. Your system is doing exactly what it thinks will keep you safe. It's just working off outdated information. So you update the system, with love, with patience, with repetition. Every time you choose a new response, you rewire the brain. Every time you stay instead of flee, speak instead of silence, soften instead of harden, you become the parent you never had. And your inner child notices. They begin to trust again. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. One powerful exercise is to write a letter to your inner child, not from guilt, but from love. Acknowledge what they went through. Apologize for the times you ignored their needs. Celebrate their resilience. Make promises you intend to keep. Then let them respond. Write a letter back from their perspective. What do they need to feel safe? What do they miss? What are they afraid of? You'll be surprised by the clarity and wisdom that emerges. You can also use visualizations. Imagine a safe place, a meadow, a room, a childhood memory. Invite your younger self there. Sit with them. Ask them questions. Hold their hand. Let them show you what you've forgotten. These aren't fantasies, they're emotional blueprints. And over time, they shift how you show up in your real life. Another important layer is grief. Healing the inner child often brings up grief for what you didn't get, for what was lost, for how long you've been carrying pain. Don't rush it. Don't try to package it. Let yourself mourn. Let the tears fall. Grief is not weakness, it's devotion. It says, this mattered. It honors your story. As you do this work, you may notice something strange. You become softer and stronger, more vulnerable and more grounded. That's the paradox of healing. You feel more, not less. But instead of drowning, you begin to float. Not because the pain is gone, but because you've built inner capacity. You're no longer alone with it. And perhaps the most beautiful part, you begin to see the world differently. When someone lashes out, you see their inner child. When you get triggered, you see your own. And instead of reacting, you breathe. You choose. You respond from love, not reactivity. That's how we change the world, not through force, but through inner reconciliation. Your worth is not up for debate. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. Your wounds are not shameful. They are doorways. Your inner child is not in the way. They are the way. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you are. And once you do, no one can take that from you. If you've made it this far, you've already begun. Healing isn't about completing a checklist. It's about beginning a relationship with yourself, with your past, with your truth. And it's a relationship that deepens over time. There is no rush. There is only presence. You are not behind. You are not too late. Your inner child is still there, waiting, and now they see you're listening. Let's pause for a moment. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Let the air move through your lungs. Place a hand on your heart if it helps. This body, this vessel, has carried you through so much, and within it lives every version of you. The laughing child, the frightened teen, the determined adult. None of them are gone. They are within you. They speak through your reactions, your dreams, your desires. And now finally they are being heard. Carl Jung believed that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off parts of ourselves, but by bringing them into the light and making peace with them. That's what you've been doing. Every insight, every feeling, every memory you've reclaimed, it's a thread in the tapestry of your soul. And the more of yourself you reclaim, the more power you carry. Not control, but rootedness. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to remember. There's a kind of magic that happens when you start living from this place. You stop performing. You stop chasing approval. You stop abandoning yourself to belong. And instead you start belonging to yourself. That's what true self-esteem is. It's not thinking you're better than others. It's knowing you don't have to compete, that you have nothing to hide, nothing to prove, that your presence is enough. The world may not always affirm this. In fact, it may resist it. A person who is no longer easily manipulated can be unsettling. But don't let that stop you. You're not here to fit into broken systems. You're here to live fully, love deeply, and stand tall. Not from ego, but from essence. And when the old voices return, and they will, you won't be afraid. You'll know how to hold them, how to speak to them, how to gently say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need you to take the wheel anymore." That's leadership. That's healing. That's reparenting in action. This work is not easy. It's sacred. It requires courage, honesty, and compassion. But it changes everything. It changes how you love, how you lead, how you dream. It allows you to walk into the future without dragging the weight of an unloved past. It allows you to show up in relationships with an open heart instead of a guarded wound. It allows you to say yes to life, not out of fear, but from trust. And perhaps most importantly, it allows you to forgive yourself for the times you didn't know better, for the choices made in survival, for the years spent asleep. Forgiveness is not a finish line. It's a posture, a daily decision to release yourself from the prison of shame. Your past is not a curse, it's a classroom. And your pain is not a punishment, it's a passage. So what now? Now you begin living in a new way. A symbolic life, as Jung would call it, where every moment becomes meaningful. You start noticing synchronicities. You speak to your dreams. You listen to your body. You nurture your creativity. You spend time with your soul, not just your schedule. You make space for rituals, reflection, and rest. You become your own sanctuary. You no longer wait for someone else to give you permission to heal, to shine, to matter. You give it to yourself. And in doing so, you light the way for others. That's the beauty of healing. It ripples. Every time you show up for yourself, you change the world a little. Because healed people don't control, they empower. They don't project, they integrate. They don't shame, they understand. Your inner child doesn't need you to be perfect. They just need to know you won't abandon them again. Keep that promise. Speak kindly. Rest when you're tired. Laugh often. Cry freely. Move your body. Express your truth. Surround yourself with people who see you. All of you. And when doubt creeps in, return to this moment, this breath, this truth. You are healing. You are whole. You are home. Thank you for walking this path, for choosing courage over comfort, for meeting yourself with love. The work you're doing is real. It's noble. It's needed. And though I may not know your story, I believe in your future. The world needs people who have made peace with their past, people who have turned their wounds into wisdom, people like you. If this message resonated with you, consider subscribing. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment. Your words could be the medicine someone else needs. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out the links below for resources and next steps on your healing journey. But most importantly, be gentle with yourself. You're doing better than you think. And your inner child is so proud of how far you've come.